seen before some alternate realities in the 1986 movie where Optimus Prime doesn't die and how this would have played out. But today I'm asking a different question. How about the narrative of the 1986 movie from the universe of shattered glass? Welcome to the other side of the Matrix.
The other side of the Matrix.
So we'll start with the very first scene of the movie, where you see Unicron devouring a planet as its peaceful inhabitants look on in horror. In a shattered glass universe, this planet is already a ravaged, war-torn world. It's worth mentioning that Unicron is still Unicron in this universe, but his motives are to heal and restore, much like his fabled brother Primus would do. Unicron would shine a ray of light onto planets, bringing calm and prosperity before moving on his way. Okay, it might not be a lively start to the movie, but this is an alternate reality. On to Cybertron, where we see a typical scene of Optimus Prime in his command post along with Ironhide, Cliffjumper and others. Except in this scene, rather than sending on a shuttle to do an Energon supply run, this is transporting Decepticon prisoners to Earth. Laserbeak is still Laserbeak and returns to Megatron to inform him of his findings. Megatron sets off and encounters the Autobots in space and leads a boarding party to rescue his Decepticon comrades. The battle ensues, and takes place much as you would normally expect, but with one noticeable change. Megatron's plan is to still take the Autobot shuttle to get into Autobot City and free the Decepticon prisoners, and also overthrow Autobot City from within. A wounded Ironhide grabs onto Megatron's legs to stop him, but rather than to give him a brutal execution, Megatron simply throws him into the brig as his prisoner. On to the next change, and this is where Hot Rod notices the Decepticons on the shuttle and begins to fire upon said shuttle. But also in this universe, he contacts Autobot Command, who don't hesitate to fire upon one of their own, and the battle for Autobot City begins. The battle is much the same. The Decepticons still have the advantage of surprise, Devastator still merges for the kill, Snarl is still AWOL, then Optimus appears, running down every Decepticon he can find, laughing along the way. He confronts Megatron and the two fight it out. The same speech takes place, but with a few lines swapped, Optimus threatening to rip out Megatron's optics, and so on. The same ending comes, and Optimus holds Megatron at gunpoint. Hot Rod still interferes, seizing the opportunity to be the hero. But Megatron grabs a pistol and Hot Rod and reluctantly guns down Prime. But this ultimately would lead to the same outcome, with Optimus knocking Megatron down a peg or two. The battle is won for the Autobots. Prime on his deathbed still passes the matrix of leadership onto Ultra Magnus. He also praises Hot Rod for attempting to seize his opportunity, but condemns him for not executing it, saying he will never be a leader. It's the same problem for Astra Train in the Shattered Glass universe. They need to jettison some weight or they'll never make it to Cybertron. The Decepticons are faced with a tough dilemma. They have limited choices to make, but if they don't make them, they'll die. The badly damaged Decepticons are the ones who save the day, in that they sacrifice themselves so their friends can make it home. So it's still Thundercracker, Skywarp, the Insecticons and Megatron himself sacrificing themselves for the greater good. It's here that Megatron names Starscream as the new leader of the Decepticons before willingly jumping out of Astra Train. With the Decepticons having a heavy heart, they make their way back to Cybertron and rather than having a coronation, have a wake and a moment for their fallen comrades. Megatron and his fallen Decepticons float through space and meet Unicron. Megatron then pleads with Unicron to restore his comrades to full health. Unicron does this and informs Megatron, now Galvatron, that Optimus Prime is dead and Ultra Magnus is the new leader of the Autobots and holds a matrix of leadership, but insists that he will not get involved in their civil war. Being granted the revenge, which in this universe is called the Revival, Galvatron sets off to Cybertron to meet up with his fellow Decepticons. Galvatron arrives on Cybertron to reunite with the Decepticon forces, and after much discussion is welcomed within the ranks along with Cyclonus and the Sweeps. In this universe, Starscream does not die. On to Moonbase 2, where Jazz and Cliffjumper notice that Unicron is passing them by, and they inform Autobot City. The Autobots take it upon themselves to make a preemptive strike on their quest for galactic rule. Rather than the Decepticons re-attacking Autobot City, forcing the Autobots to leave in their shuttles, it is the Autobots who make an assault party of their own to go and attack Unicron head on. However, in this universe, Galvatron takes his forces to intercept the Autobots in space. We move on to a battle where the Revival takes on the two Autobot shuttles. And yep, Cup, Hot Rod and the Dinobots still crash onto an alien planet, but it's a ruptured fuel leak that causes the ship that's carrying Ultra Magnus and his crew to explode, forcing them to flee in a smaller shuttle. The next change would be where the Autobots crash land on a planet of junk. Now, the Junkions aren't exactly welcome of new faces, and the Autobots are ruthless at the best of times. So, of course, another battle takes place, where the Autobots ruthlessly destroy the Junkions, take their planet and their ships as spoils of war. I know people will say the Junkions can rebuild themselves, how could they possibly lose? But they're not invincible, and in this universe the Autobots are merciless. Hot Rod and Cup are still captured by the Sharkticons and taken to the pit of judgment for their galactic war crimes. The Dinobots turn up, who probably ate Wheelie, and laid havoc to the Sharkticons and the Quintessons before stealing their ship too. You can see a pattern here. We're then back on Cybertron, where Galvatron and the Decepticons believe that Ultra Magnus is destroyed along with the Matrix of Leadership. It's at this point that Unicron makes his way to Cybertron too and begins to restore the planet that has suffered from so much war. But the Autobots appear in two stolen ships and begin to attack Unicron themselves. It's at this point that Unicron has no choice but to transform to fight off the Autobots. The Decepticons are just trying to keep Cybertron from any collateral damage. The Autobots board Unicron and proceed to fight him from within. It's here that Galvatron takes a few forces also inside Unicron to chase after him. It's here in battle that Ultra Magnus is badly wounded and falls, passing on the Matrix of Leadership to Hot Rod to prove Optimus wrong. A one-on-one battle takes place, and Galvatron tries to persuade to Hot Rod that there can be peace and Unicron is here to repair and save worlds. But Hot Rod will not hear it, instead opening up the Matrix to become Rodimus Unicronus. Galvatron, outmatched and fighting valiantly, falls to Rodimus. Rodimus Unicronus rejoins his Autobot forces to take on the now leaderless Decepticons, forcing them to fall and to then continue to attack Unicron from within, forcing Unicron to surrender. The Autobots now have Earth, Cybertron and Unicron under their command. And you cried at the first one. Could you imagine if this was the film? But there you go. That's Transformers the movie, but in shattered glass. It could have gone one or two ways. Either keep the same story and switch in their shattered glass personalities, or to swap the Autobots and Decepticons into their different places. So instead of Autobot City on Earth, it would be Decepticon City. And maybe Optimus Prime meets Unicron and gets upgraded to Power Master Prime. But thanks for watching, that was a long one. Hope you made it all the way through. Hit the like, share and subscribe. I'll see you on the next one.